The silence in the cabin broke when Marcus refused to move, his ticket still raised, his voice steady but unshakable. Under the weight of cameras, witnesses, and undeniable proof, the crew finally relented. Jordan was led back to his seat. The leather that once felt like a dream now carried the weight of humiliation and the sting of being told he didn't belong. He sat beside his father, trying to smile, but the light in his eyes had dimmed. For Marcus, reclaiming those seats was never the victory it appeared to be. Justice delayed in front of strangers was no justice at all. He looked at his son, and he knew the scar would last far longer than the flight. A child had been taught, in public and in shame, that skin color could still outweigh truth. For Jordan, it was supposed to be an adventure. At just 13, he had grown up watching planes cut through the sky, dreaming of the day he'd sit in one of those big leather seats at the very front. His father, Marcus, a man who had built his way up from nothing to become a respected CEO, wanted to give his son that experience, a small reward for the sacrifices they had made as a family. For Jordan, stepping into first class wasn't just about comfort. It was proof that all the long nights his father worked, all the time spent away, meant something. The cabin smelled of fresh leather and coffee. Passengers shuffled bags overhead as Jordan slid into his seat, his eyes wide with excitement. He clutched his backpack, stuffed with comic books and headphones, grinning as though he had just stepped into another world. Around him, suits and business travelers barely glanced his way, their eyes buried in laptops and papers. But then, the glances began to linger. A whisper here. A raised brow there. Jordan didn't notice it at first, too caught up in the thrill of it all. Yet, for others, the sight of a young black boy alone in first class stirred something ugly. And in just a few minutes, that quiet joy would be stolen from him, ripped away by voices that claimed he didn't belong. Jordan sat quietly, legs swinging just above the carpeted floor, his backpack resting against his knees. He tried to act like he belonged, just like the adults around him, headphones ready, safety card in hand, but his excitement gave him away. That was when the murmurs began. A couple across the aisle exchanged looks, leaning toward a flight attendant. A man in the row ahead craned his neck, frowning as if something was out of place. Jordan didn't understand at first, but the weight of those stares soon pressed heavy on his shoulders. The attendant approached, smile tight, voice hushed. "Sweetheart, are you sure this is your seat?" The words were wrapped in politeness, but the implication cut sharp. Jordan nodded, holding up his ticket, his hand trembling slightly. But the attendant's glance lingered, as though waiting for a different answer. Passengers nearby shifted, watching, their whispers rising like a tide. Then came the words Jordan never expected, "I'm sorry, but you'll need to come with me. This seat isn't for you." The boy's heart sank. Heat rushed to his cheeks as he looked down at the bold print on his ticket, first class, seat 2A. His father had checked them in himself. There was no mistake. But no matter how clear the truth, the disbelief in their eyes drowned it out. A businessman scoffed under his breath. Another woman shook her head, muttering something about kids these days. Jordan tried to protest, voice cracking, but it was swallowed by authority. The attendant's hand gestured toward the aisle, insistence growing sharper with each second. And so, under the gaze of strangers, he stood, forced from the leather seat that moments ago had felt like a dream. His backpack bounced against his leg as he shuffled out, humiliation burning in every step. The whispers followed him. Some passengers filmed, phones tilted discreetly toward the scene, while others sat in complicit silence. To them, it was entertainment. To Jordan, it was exposure, his dignity stripped away in front of dozens of strangers. He was led to the front of the cabin, left standing near the galley like an intruder who had been caught red-handed. His hands gripped the straps of his backpack until his knuckles ached. He kept his eyes down, but the questions screamed inside his head, "Why me? Why now? What did I do wrong?" Minutes dragged. Every second felt like an hour. And then, from the jet bridge, a familiar figure stepped into view. Marcus, his father, briefcase in hand, eyes narrowing as he took in the sight of his son pushed aside like luggage that didn't belong. The air shifted. The passengers fell into a hush, sensing something more was about to unfold. Marcus was not just a father. He was a man who had fought through doors meant to stay closed, a man who commanded boardrooms with a glance. And now, faced with his son's humiliation, he carried the kind of authority that no ticket or title could deny. But the question lingered like static in the cabin: would even his power be enough to turn back the tide of prejudice already in motion? Marcus's eyes locked on his son, standing small and shaken in the narrow galley space. The boy's backpack looked too heavy now, his shoulders hunched under humiliation. In that instant, Marcus felt the sting of every injustice he had endured come rushing back, but this time, it wasn't him. It was his child. He strode down the aisle, the polished shoes that once walked into boardrooms now carrying him into a battleground of prejudice. The flight attendant stepped forward nervously, words fumbling. "Sir, there's been a misunderstanding." But Marcus cut through with quiet authority. He held up both tickets, his name printed clearly, his son's beside it, first class, seats 2A and 2B. Evidence undeniable, truth inked in black and white. Yet still, the hesitation lingered. Passengers shifted, some whispering that rules are rules, others staring down at their phones, avoiding the discomfort of reality. The man who had scoffed earlier leaned into the aisle, sneering, "Maybe you people should know your place." The words dripped with venom, loud enough for the cabin to hear. Jordan flinched. Marcus froze for a second, his jaw tightening, the rage flashing in his eyes. He stepped closer, towering but calm, voice steady and sharp. "Our place," he said, holding up the tickets for all to see, "is right here." The cabin fell silent. Dozens of phones rose into the air, recording, waiting to see what would happen next. The flight crew hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing on their shoulders. Injustice had been laid bare, but whether they acted with courage or coward would decide everything. For Marcus and Jordan, this wasn't just about 2 seats. It was about centuries of being told to move, to wait, to step aside. And now, with the entire cabin as witness, the question hung in the air like a storm about to break: would the system bend once more under prejudice, or would truth finally take its seat? The silence in the cabin broke when Marcus refused to move, his ticket still raised, his voice steady but unshakable. Under the weight of cameras, witnesses, and undeniable proof, the crew finally relented. Jordan was led back to his seat. The leather that once felt like a dream now carried the weight of humiliation and the sting of being told he didn't belong. He sat beside his father, trying to smile, but the light in his eyes had dimmed. For Marcus, reclaiming those seats was never the victory it appeared to be. Justice delayed in front of strangers was no justice at all. He looked at his son, and he knew the scar would last far longer than the flight. A child had been taught, in public and in shame, that skin color could still outweigh truth. The story didn't stay on that plane. Passengers shared the videos. Some condemned the injustice, others dismissed it as a misunderstanding. But Marcus knew better. This wasn't isolated. It was part of a larger truth, a pattern that repeats in classrooms, workplaces, neighborhoods, and even in the aisles of an airplane. Jordan went home that night, but he wasn't the same. He had learned too early that dignity is something you must defend, even when it's already yours. And Marcus was reminded that no title, no wealth, no position can shield his son from a world still poisoned by prejudice. This story is not just theirs. It belongs to every family who has ever been forced to prove they deserve what was already rightfully theirs. And so the question lingers, louder than the engines that never took off: how many more children must be humiliated before the world finally chooses justice over silence?